You have to truly believe in the magic.
Hey, Magic fans, and welcome to Penny for Your Thoughts, the podcast of the Orlando Magic UK. We are finally back. It's been a while. We apologise, but real life and, in Geraint's case, holidays have got in the way of it, of us recording. So here we go. We are back. Welcome. Gary, how are you doing, mate?
I'm really pleased that I'm not trusted to edit the pod today, so I'm in a really good mood.
I love the message on the last one. Sorry for the quality of the editing. I'm learning.
Well, it was called No Frills, Plenty of Thrills. So we go.
Mikey, how's things with you, mate?
Really good, mate. Thank you. It's nice to be back. It's been a busy start to the year with work. Like a few of us, I've been suffering with colds and bugs that go around this time of year. I took a month-long hiatus from social media, deleted Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, which was actually a really healthy thing to do. And whilst I'm not a massive heavy user of them, it was nice to take those distractions away. But obviously, I've been watching the Magic. I've not been posting about them, but it was a good month back in January. And now it's nice to finally be back with you guys, because I've missed talking about the Magic, and I messaged you guys earlier in the week, I think, or last weekend, and said, right, it's time to get it back on. So now G's back from holiday, we can get the gang back together and get it on.
Absolutely. And fresh from visiting the City Beautiful, G, how's things, mate?
Good, mate. A
How was the trip?
3-1 trip. Well, you can't complain, really, given the opponents. You know, we had that one game against the Bulls was a little bit lackluster to begin with. They did rally, but no, to have that sort of trip, just like what you guys had, beating Golden State, to beat the Boston Celtics with an arena full of Boston Celtics, and be able to really give it to them was a lot of fun. I can assure you that. It was superb, and I got to meet lots of great people, a lot of listeners to the show. Thanks for stopping and saying hi, having photos, etc. So that was fantastic, and a lot of UK people as well. I did bump into. I'll shout them out because I've got to. I said I would. Howard Thomas and Carenza Thomas, right? They're from Tunbridge Wells. I was at the first game in the team store, and I was wearing my Orlando Magic UK t-shirt because I was getting my Disney badges done. And they were like, "Oh, it's G from Orlando Magic UK," and I'm like, "Oh, how's it going?" So exchanged numbers with Howard. I went to Harry Buffalo. He swung by just to say hello again, and then we just kept bumping into each other. Now, I'll tell you that the funny story is, the first time I met him, he said, I'm in the lower ball. I just need to be sure that I'm not on one of these cams today, because I've been on the Oblivious cam before. So there I am. So I'm thinking, okay. So I go to the game, go and get my beer, sit down, and all of a sudden I look at the Jumbotron, Oblivious cam. Who is on it again? Mr. Howard Thomas. So I thought, all right, got his number. So I turned to the guys, I did Amy and Daniel and Rihanna, and I said, watch this. So I texted him. I said, look at the Jumbotron, mate. And I said, watch him smile. And then a big grin came across his face. He's like, oh, I've been done again. but it didn't end there. It didn't end there. The next game then, so during, the course of the game, they do the dance cam and everything. His cam came up. So who was on it again? It was Howard and Carenza. So they had to pucker up, and it was funny.
Brilliant stuff. But yeah, it's good to be back, mate, was it?
Yeah, it's superb to be back in Orlando. I mean, I've been back in Wales now for 8 days, and I'm missing the place like crazy. So I'm just trying to convince Amy to book for next year. So, laying the groundwork, shall we say?
Absolutely, mate. We're all doing the same here.
You got 3 wins, and you got to see Mark Davis in your first game as well, G.
I know. Couldn't make it up, could you? And in fairness, I got bumped up in one of the games. So shout out to Sabrina for that. Really appreciate that. And that was a game Tony Brothers was officiating, and I've got a close-up photo of Tony Brothers just leaving the court, but he actually officiated okay that game. So superb couple of games there.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, in this episode, we are going to be talking trade deadline and how it affects the Magic season. So, let's get into it. In what seemed like a quiet trade deadline for the Magic, the action around the league impacts on our team and affects Orlando's chances in the East. Only one trade for the Magic. Mo Bamba moving to the Lakers. We received veteran point guard Pat Beverley and cash considerations along with a second-round pick. The cash considerations are because Pat Beverley is being effectively bought out. He's been told not to report. So let's start with that one. Are we disappointed with that trade, or are we happy to see the move made? Mikey, go
on. Well, first of all, I think I briefly read somewhere that apparently, I don't know how true it was, that the Magic moved Bamba for the good of the player, and I don't know whether that come into it a little bit.
Yeah, I could believe that.
That's something we've seen the front office do on a few occasions, and I think that's part of the reason why we all expect T. Ross to eventually get cut and let him go to a contender and compete for a championship. But Bamba's obviously been out the rotation since fight night, which we might talk about later on, I'm sure, against Minnesota. I think we all dislike the fact that he went to that team, and it might help them out a little bit. But look, he needed an opportunity. A new opportunity, a fresh start. It's not really worked out for the Magic. And in terms of what we got back in return, I think Patrick Beverley's going to get waived by all reports, and we don't really have a need with him with our guard depth as it is. So I think really it's more of a salary dump and setting us up for the off season really. So and the most important thing we got back was our favourite asset, cash considerations.
Exactly. Gary, do you think we could have got more?
I think it shows maybe that's all that was on the table for Mo. I think if there was a better deal there, we would have taken it. And the fact that we've ended up with what we have, I totally buy the idea of we've done it for the good of him. I totally believe that. But I think it's, for me, first of all, if that's the best deal that there was for Bamba, that maybe tells you that the market wasn't great. And secondly, I do wonder if we've done it with an eye on how to get minutes for Jonathan Isaac, for Mo Wagner, and for Bol Bol. I think it's basically taking somebody away and saying, okay, like let's just free it up a little bit. But I was surprised when I saw what we got, but I think that maybe shows you what the market was.
Yeah, I think you're very much right there. G, we know I'm going to ask you about the West in a little while anyway. But in Mo going to the purple and gold, any feelings on that? Can you wish Mo well?
Oh, you're going to wish the player well. You can wish the player well. You
want him to do well with a rubbish team.
I want him to score 50 points, then to go 0-82, basically. something like that. He was a servant to the Magic. He tried his hardest. I mean, Mikey and Gary have picked up a lot of what my thoughts are also. The only disappointment for me was, maybe not getting a backup centre in return. I was speaking to Mikey the other day and we were speaking about Mo Wagner, and Mikey made a great point to me in that he's the worst defender in the paint in the whole league. So, without Wendell, who has missed games with his injury, I was hoping maybe we get a little bit more depth at the centre position. Bol isn't really a centre, you get moved around, but having an open roster spot now with Beverley not reporting and perhaps releasing Terence Ross, that'll give us two. So you're looking at maybe Kevon Harris. And then maybe if there's some sort of a big somewhere that can give an opportunity, something a bit like what Ken Birch was given. And Mo Wagner, actually, come to think of it, about 2 seasons ago. There might be somebody that, Weltman's got and Hammond have got their eyes on. So they know what they're doing. It was just disappointing to see him go to the LA Lakers, and almost what I saw was helping them a little bit. I just let them rot myself. But there we go.
I think I put it in the WhatsApp group we've got. Why do teams insist on helping the Lakers every trade time? I don't understand it, but there we go. So, Mikey, I'm going to come to you. Mm-hmm. Has the East got weaker?
I don't. One team certainly has got weaker. I think everyone else has kind of stood pat a little bit. I mean, the main deals, I was having a little look before we jumped on. So, Toronto have arguably getting Jakob Poeltl back for Ken Birch has probably improved their starting unit.
Yeah.
Which is obviously we're battling with them for maybe one of those last play-in spots. Josh Hart to the Knicks, I think, is a decent move for them. I mean, we already saw after the loss to them the other night that the Knicks are already a really gritty, physical team, and I think Josh Hart fits that mould under Tom Thibodeau as well. Mike Muscala adding a bit of depth for Boston, but I don't think he's really going to feature much. But a good vet to have around. I think Jay Crowder going to Milwaukee is a big pickup. I know he's not played this season, but he's been rumoured all along since the beginning of the year.
He's a solid backup guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's that perfect sort of 3-and-D front court player who can guard the likes of Jason Tatum in the playoffs. So he's a big get for them. So you can argue the Bucks have got a little bit better as well. Philly, I mean they've been playing well, but letting Thibault go was a bit of a surprise to me. He's one of their better defenders who doesn't always feature, but he's the sort of player that you can put in situations when you get into the playoffs. Who's a bit of a lockdown defender himself, and although he hasn't always looked like he's played well, the numbers show that Thibault's played well or has had a positive impact for the Sixers. So I was surprised that they let him go. But obviously the big talking points are the Nets. I mean, we can all weigh in on this, but what a disaster! I mean, to go from having James Harden, Kyrie, and KD, and now they're all gone. And they haven't even won a championship out of it. I mean, that.
Well, I could say you look at what actually that big three delivered for them. Nothing.
I mean,
I know that there'll be a certain person we know will say it was only because of a toe.
but it's still a fail. It's a massive fail, isn't it? I mean, you acquire those sorts of players. Well. They could build around Cam Thomas the way he's been playing the last few games. I think he's put 40 points up in 3 games in a row. But yeah, I mean they're the only team that's really sort of gone backwards. I think is the Nets. I think everybody else is sort of standing pat. I mean, I was having a look. We're 10.5 games back of Brooklyn at the moment, who are in the 5th seed, and I don't think it's impossible to think that they might slide back and we could finish above Brooklyn by the end of the season. So who knows? I mean, they've already got a big gap already, haven't they? But I know they won last night against, was it the Bulls they beat in their first game since the trade? But yeah, what a disaster for them. But yeah, for everybody else, I think that the East is really what we saw before the deadline. It's the same now for me.
Yeah. So before the trade deadline, we'd heard that RJ Hampton, Mo Bamba, Terence Ross were all guys that the media probably expected to make an exit. There was also talk along the lines of Gary Harris and Jalen Suggs. So whilst we may still see some moves with buyout side of things, Gary, how do you feel about the Magic basically standing pat and keeping the roster the way it was?
Firstly, if I'm sat here with like a big grin on that Nets talk, I'm just thinking of all those casual Nets jerseys that popped up when like the big three came in. You know, sometimes life comes at you fast. But anyway, on the
there must be a fair collection of people now who have followed KD around buying jerseys for arriving at a completed project.
It's just crazy. It's just and think back as well. Wasn't there a cover of was it Sports Illustrated or something, and it had Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce and Brooke Lopez and Deron Williams, and it was like, they got next or something, like this type of crazy thing about what the Nets were going to do. And it just feels like history's repeated itself, really. So I was kind of sat there, and it was as soon as Kyrie rocked up, I was like, that's start your funeral off for me. And I'm, first of all, talking about trades, I'm really glad that we didn't get going for Kyrie. So I'm going to start with that. Yeah. And then I'm just going to go from there and say, I think we should see what we've got. I totally expect Terence Ross to get a buyout as a thank you very much for what you've done. And I would echo all of that, because I know he's not featuring a lot at the minute, but during the Cliff era, when we got into the playoffs and stuff, T. Ross was immense. He's just been a great ambassador for the city, and I'll miss him if we do buy him out, and I'll wish him well wherever he goes, because I think he's fantastic. And it makes me think, if we do let T. Ross go, maybe we do want to take a look at RJ Hampton for the rest of the season, or we want to get Kevon Harris in, or we just want to extend our guard rotation around what we've already got. I do think we should stick with what we have. I saw the talk about Jalen Suggs, a couple of people putting him into really trades and saying Jalen Suggs. We cannot do that. It would be like Aaron Gordon came back the other night into the Amway. Whatever people think of Aaron Gordon, he's found his spot.
Yes,
Denver as the third option or the fourth option, depending on who's available that night. And we're talking about Jalen Suggs, and I don't think he's played 82 career games yet. I think he's played about 79 career games, and there's a lot of judgments passed on the likes of Suggs and Ball and people like that, and they're not even really a full rookie yet in terms of the games they've played. So I think it would be a complete disaster to be trading or getting rid of anyone like that. We need to take a real look at them right the way through their rookie deal and perhaps further. So I would completely stick with what we've got. I'm pleased we didn't trade Gary Harris. I think we need him in there. I think he performs a role for us. And when he was going through his slump, when he started here, I was one of the people who was really quite vocal about how bad his play was. But I think he offers something to this team, and we need him in the locker room right now. So he's not an old guy by any accounts. Just on our team, he's an old guy, but on any other, he would just be like a guy who's average in his career, But I think we just stick with what we've got, see who we've got, and let Mosley tinker with the minutes rotations as Jonathan Isaac gets healthier. And I think really that's a key reason why Mo Bamba exited. And I think it could be a reason why Terence Ross will also go to give minutes to possibly RJ, but more likely to see Markel, Jalen Suggs, and of course Cole Anthony find themselves within our system.
Yeah, I could see us potentially doing something, bringing somebody in for a short deal from the buyout side of things when the buyout market becomes active. But I've got to be honest, I'm happy that we didn't go in for Fred VanVleet or whoever else. I mean, who knows? We might well have done, and nothing gets leaked. But all the indications that I was hearing was we were going to have a quiet trade deadline. And personally, I'm happy to see that. And I think it was the right move. I want to see what we've got. We're only just seeing Jonathan Isaac playing with this group of players. Yeah. He hasn't got to extensive minutes yet. So I'm happy to see us stamp at and look at what we've got. This was always, as we said at the start of the season, a development season. Look and see what we've got, and then the next stage of work is during the summer, not midway through this season. Personally,
absolutely, and we're really now, like when you look at it, Paul, I agree that everything you said. We're just seeing really the emergence of like what impact Markel Fultz is having. He looks like a legitimate 16-8 guy, if nothing else, which is not to be sniffed at, with a high steal percentage, which is huge because he's upped his game defensively since he's come back. And then we're seeing, I know we're going to come on to Jalen Suggs later in the show, but we're seeing really, if you watch the Magic, what Jalen Suggs does and how he alters and affects the tempo of the game. It is there, and I still think that he is a smart type player at his actually like floor. And then Cole we're seeing what he can do as well. You know, you kind of write off Cole like in the game there. What Cole did in that game, we don't win that game without Cole Anthony. And Jeff Turner said in the game, there's shooters and there's scorers, and Cole Anthony is an absolute scorer, and he's going to win us a lot of games if we're going to get into playoffs this year. So let's just stand with what we've got and look at those three young guards and see what they do going into the summer.
I'm liking him as the sixth man. I think he's doing a really good job. He's coming off really well. Now, G, I know how much you love certain teams in that Western Conference. So it's only right to ask you who did well in the West.
You know, I dislike 15 teams in the Western Conference.
So, who did well? Who's made good moves? Who do you think improved?
I think the Phoenix Suns did very well. Not only did they get a brand new owner in the morning, and in fairness, you know, by the end of the day, he acquired Kevin Durant. You know, and it's given Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton a real opportunity to come out of the West and get to the finals. And having a player like Durant, obviously he's got his injury troubles at the moment, but you know, he's an absolute assassin. They've got everything there as long as they you know, pull it all together to come out of the West. So what the Suns have done, okay, they've had to trade a couple of players, Bridges, Cam Johnson, a couple of picks, etc. But not only did they get Durant, they got TJ Warren, who also is a very, you know, good asset to have coming off the bench. You saw what he was like in the Orlando bubble. People forget about that. He's had his injury issues. So for me, the main winner, and I'll get onto the other teams because there's been a lot of trades. I've never seen a deadline day like it. But I think there was a lot of teams that improved. So after the Suns, I'm gonna skip over this next team. The LA Clippers got better. They acquired Eric Gordon, Bones Highland, Mason Plumlee, just to sort of shore up their front line. The Memphis Grizzlies, who are fast becoming one of my least favourite teams, they got the player that I wanted in Luke Kennard. I thought he would have been a perfect fit for us. So seeing him go there, I was bitterly disappointed. The Dallas Mavericks obviously made a move for Kyrie Irving. I don't think that puts them over. Obviously, Doncic needs another superstar to get the support. But I think that maybe a decent big away from being able to contend with some of these other teams in the West. But obviously, it's the first step to trying to put it right in Dallas and convince Doncic that, you know, Dallas is the place to be. But at the same side, if Kyrie does Kyrie things, then as Gary said, life comes at you fast, and you might have Doncic asking to get out of there soon. So, we can all hope, because we know who his coach was before, don't we?
We know who he loves.
Yeah, exactly. Denver, I mean, we obviously saw them yesterday, top of the West. They added Thomas Bryant, who I think Thomas Bryant is a very good player. I was surprised that he asked for a trade from the LA Lakers, and they didn't give up much for him, just a couple of second rounders and Devon Reed. And then obviously the other team that improved, unfortunately, were the Los Angeles Lakers, getting Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley, D'Angelo Russell, who, okay, I don't think he's the best player in the world, but he can shoot the three. And they've only lost Damian Jones, Toscano Anderson, Westbrook. They lost Beverley, obviously, as well, added Bamba. They added Hachimura a couple of weeks ago. Yep. So they've got a brand new sort of team there. I don't know. I think the media's got some part to play with it, because they just focus on the LA Lakers on every single occasion. And I'm sick to death of it. And like Charles Barkley says, I'm sick of talking about these bums, because that's what they are.
And mate, let's be fair. Any player that is, I think you've been saying it about the over hyping of anybody who is in the Lakers, but it feels like at times you could put a dead donkey in a Lakers shirt and the NBA media would be saying, yeah, he's a really good 3-point shooter. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter whether somebody is or not, or you could do it. It just seems a little bit skewed, like you say, every single time. But
Yeah,
hey,
well, Taylor Horton-Tucker, point in question. He was, a sought-after piece last year, wasn't he, at the trade deadline? And like, oh, yeah, we can get a couple of first-round picks or some decent players for him. He goes to Utah and he's just sat on the bench. And now all of a sudden they got Mo Bamba, and you see ESPN have these graphics come out with, an Orlando center goes to the LA Lakers. When's he going to be the next NBA champion? I'm thinking, Jesus, just give it a rest, guys.
I think my response was yawn, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's just tiresome.
Yeah.
Do you really think this moved the needle much for the Lakers? Because I don't.
Well, no, I don't think they've got enough games to catch up. I mean, they're not even in the play-in at the moment, are they?
I know they got rid of Russell Westbrook, but D'Angelo Russell is an upgrade at the point guard position, but he's got his issues. Because why would Minnesota trade a young player who's had one of his best offensive seasons that he's had since he's been in the league, and trade him to then acquire an older point guard in Mike Conley? I mean, that doesn't make sense either for Minnesota, but I don't think the Lakers are that much better. And even if they get into the play-in tournament and they get into the playoffs, they're still going to end up playing one of the Nuggets, Grizzlies, Mavs, or Kings. They ain't going far. We haven't got anything to worry about the Lakers.
I'd read about the Mike Conley thing, that it was potentially something to do with the chemistry that he has with Gobert.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That's what I'd read. Yeah. So moving on to Magic news. As we record this, it's Friday the 10th of February now. The Magic stand at 23-33, 13th in the East. We're sat outside the play-in tournament by 4 wins, but we have played, I think, a game less than Toronto in 10th. But more on them later, as we've got them upcoming. We are now 6-4 in the last 10 games. At home, we have a record of 14-14, so we've reached 500 at home, which is a nice thing to finally see. On the road, it's 9-19, so we could really do with picking up a few extra road wins there.
Paul, didn't we start 0-12 on the road?
It was some horrendous figure, yeah.
Yeah, so it's 9-7 since then.
It's
pretty good going.
Usually. Yeah. We're now seeing a lot of health back. We've got Chuma Okeke. Sorry, is that correct? Yeah. Chuma Okeke. He's been assigned to the Lakeland Magic as he makes his way back to fitness. I don't think it's going to be over long before we see him back. We're literally looking at day-to-day things now. And in the All-Star Rising Stars game, in the All-Star Weekend Rising Stars game, both Magic players involved were taken as first picks. Paolo Banchero at number 1 by Pau Gasol, and Franz Wagner at 2 by Deron Williams. So, Rising Stars. Gary, two things I want to ask you. Should Jalen Suggs have been involved in the event? And what does it say about our young cornerstones that they are being seen by others and taken at 1 and 2 over some, let's be fair, some really talented players in this Rising Star game?
I'll start with talking about Paolo and Franz to start with. I think it shows you, first of all, that even though right now I think Paolo's struggling by Paolo standards, you're seeing a generational style rookie that's here. And we'll go back to this again. He's possibly the best rookie out of the last couple of drafts, if not more.
Yeah.
If not more. He's a game changer. He's got eyes on him. The way teams are playing against Paolo and Franz now shows you that they are genuinely scared of what they can do. And I think the word is out. And I know there's been ESPN coverage about how good the Magic are, but I think that answers the question when Paolo and Franz are taking 1 and 2 about basically what their reputation is right now. We've had the discussion on the pod before. If there was a redraft, would Franz Wagner have gone number 1 in his draft class? And it is a legitimate thing. People can argue it all they want, but if they're saying that Franz Wagner wouldn't be a top 3 pick in that draft, at least, then they just don't watch Magic games, because he is a really, really, really good player. And I think it shows that the Magic people are paying attention, that there's media eyes on us. They are aware, and teams don't want to play us. And I think when we played Minnesota the other day, Edwards said about the Magic are a good team. And I think people are aware of this now. And I think if we get ourselves into a situation where we make a run at the play-in or even the playoffs, don't be surprised if we're one of those teams where someone who's dissatisfied or a bigger name free agent says, actually, I want to be there. I want to play there. Because right now, if you looked at it and said, oh, well, you could play, say, hypothetically for the Magic, or you could go to the Bulls, or you could go to the Heat, you aren't going there. You aren't going to them teams. Those teams are falling away. Brooklyn's fallen off already. You know, like at the start of the season when we're doing our projections and stuff, for us to get in, teams had to fall off a bit. Well, Brooklyn's fallen apart. Miami aren't that good. Toronto aren't that good. Chicago aren't that good. Teams are falling apart. And it's starting to open up in the East where we can see there's an elite there. But we are going to be next. We are going to be in that talk with Cleveland and such, and it's because of these two guys. So it shows you what their value is and how they're thought of, and it also shows you how former players view them compared to the likes of Scotty Barnes and Evan Mobley and Jalen Green. It says it all. To answer the question on Jalen Suggs, perhaps on a Magic pod this will be controversial, but my answer is no. He shouldn't have gone. And the reason is the format is the format. We all know what it is. We know what it is at the start of the season. And if you took an outside view of Jalen Suggs, we know the G League players have got to go. If you said to me, would you rather have Jalen Suggs or Mac McClung on your roster? It's Jalen Suggs every single time. That's not up for debate, but the format is what it is. And there are a group of G League guys who have to go. So for me, the outside view is he's played 31 games this season. He's been injured. He hasn't been able to get that consistency. And if you looked at it, it's a guy who's averaging 9 points per game on 41% shooting. And we know there's a lot more to Jalen Suggs than that. We know how he affects games. But that is not going to get him into a Rising Stars challenge in the format that's there. So do I rate Jalen Suggs incredibly highly, actually? But should he have gone to the game? No.
Let's be fair. He is, I think he's already an elite defender, but he is going to be classed as that through many, many years, hopefully. Mm-hmm. You don't want defense in a all-star game. You know, it just not part of it, is it? Let's be fair.
So he's not going to get the headlines for that. It's not right now. People aren't looking at Jalen Suggs, and I think even Jalen Suggs would tell you that he hasn't played enough games and he hasn't got the case to be there.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you, Gary. Mm-hmm. Mikey, G, both agree that it's understandable why it's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Whilst we're on the topic of Jalen, away from the Rising Stars, just quickly, do you think now's a good time to suggest that he starts? Obviously, he started last night against Denver. But do you think
I'm actually going to? I was going to kind of come on to this in a little while.
All right.
No, it's all right. It's okay. No, mate. No, it's okay. It's cool. Because I think we're getting to that point of looking at the starting lineup, and it actually leads on to where I'm going to go with asking G. You were there for Jonathan Isaac's return, which is he's now. You're starting to see his minutes ramp up, and we're going to be having that question very, very soon, I think. Does he start? So, G, first of all, what was it like to be in the Amway for his return?
Superb. Well, that was the Celtics game, so there was a lot of green nonsense around me. So we obviously found out that Isaac... I was actually wearing my Isaac T-shirt the day we found out that he was going to be playing the next day. I haven't got an Isaac jersey, so... Anyway, I digress. So, we went to the Celtics game, and the atmosphere was superb, very loud, both teams going back and forth at one another. he did get kind of introduced quickly. There was almost like no prompt, right, Jonathan Isaac's coming in at the next time out. He's just at the table. He got a rousing ovation from everybody, within my sort of area. And just to see him back and taking, the plaudits of being able to come back was superb. And I think he scored 10 points in 10 minutes, a couple of steals, a couple of rebounds, doing a bit of everything, a couple of 3-pointers down in the third quarter, if I'm not mistaken. And he did really give the team, a bit of an energy shot in the arm, a bit like what Markel did the year previous. So, no, fantastic to have him back. And we've seen him really come on as the minutes have ramped up and just do the dirty work. That Knicks game against Julius Randle, when he was just all over him, smothering him, and then he just blocked him, and then Randall just pushed him, didn't he? Got a technical foul, etc. It's like, yeah, you don't mess with Jonathan. So when he's back up playing 25, 30 minutes, he's such a good player,
And I've just realised, Mikey, looking at the agenda when I wrote it, that I've completely missed out the next question, haven't I? That's why you brought up this. Because it says, firstly, G, asking you about the return, and then there's not another part of the question, is there?
No.
The question was going to be, at what point do we see him return as a starter? Do we see him return as a starter? And what do you see as a starting lineup? So yes, I can see, Mikey, where you went, because it's completely missing.
Well, for me, that lineup yesterday, I know I said this back in September when we were all debating who should start, and I said Fulton Suggs, just because
you did.
Jalen Suggs' defense and Markel's, they're just hounding them, aren't they? They're just running them off the 3-point line, really disrupting their offense. And you found that with Denver, who were the number one offensive team in the league yesterday. And Jalen showed a bit more composure on offense, I found yesterday, just not forcing a shot, taking a fake and then putting it on the floor, dribbling to the basket, hitting an easy layup. So for me, the problem was with J.I., he plays the same position as either Banchero or Wagner. And I can't put either of those two on the bench. So to have J.I. as a commodity off the bench, be it, play the 3, the 4, or the 5, that's going to be some asset to have. So for me, at least for this season, I would keep him on the bench, stick with the 5 that we've got, who've shown, by the numbers, I haven't got it in front of me, but I did see that, they do very well together. And I would, obviously Gary Harris is better for shooting outside, but when you've got Harris or Suggs to interchange at the shooting guard, it's a good problem to have, 2 players like that. So I keep Jay on the bench just for now.
So in a rotation of, say, 9 or 10 players, you're looking at Cole, J.I., Gary Harris or Suggs, Mo Wagner coming off the bench.
And Bol.
It's quite a unit. Mikey, where would you be? Does J.I. get a start over anybody?
Not this season. No, I agree on that. Next year, who knows? I mean, it all depends what Weltman and Hammond decide to do in the off-season, really, and where we add depth. We don't know. I've been advocating this even before JR's last injury about him playing some minutes at the 5, and I actually still and I think it looks more doable now. It makes more sense, especially now Bamba's gone. I mean, he's our real only main shot blocker, and that's one of JR's strengths as well defensively. So yeah, that positionless basketball, being able to switch out on different positions defensively. You could say J.I., Paolo, Franz, all sort of working like that. But at the same time, we've seen in this last stretch of games that the starting 5 as they are one of the best 5-man lineups that there are in the league. So yes, you can advocate that they should keep it as it is, and there is no need to change it if it's working. But for me, I think over the last couple of weeks, we've seen Jalen really up his game, especially defensively. He's just been an absolute pest. And last night, I mean, it was massive. I know Gary Harris was injured and they threw him in the starting five. But, I mean, when you hold the Nuggets to 103 points, I mean, does it matter if you're lacking a bit of shooting, if you can hold teams to 100 points or less? I mean, we did it with Boston on a few occasions as well. There's less urgency to. I know we need to. I know we need more 3-point shooting, but I just think the way Jalen's playing at the moment, it would be good to reward him with starting minutes. But I mean, it's fluid, really, isn't it? And you can mix it up and try different things, but we'll see. No, but long-winded way of saying no. Keep it as is.
Gary, I mean, we're not mentioning there that as I mentioned earlier, that we've got Chuma Okeke making his way back. Whilst we were over there, he was playing well. So how does he fit into the rotations, and what would you use as a regular rotation, Gary?
I think Chuma's going to really maybe have to work his way back in. Hope that, and I don't want to see this, but hope that somebody either gets a suspension or an injury to buy the minutes in for him now. And Chuma, when we blew it all up, Chuma went through a real period where he looked like, we've got a 15 points per game guy here. That's what it looked like. And there is a lot of potential there, but I think his injuries come at the worst time for him. And I also think, and it's somebody we haven't mentioned tonight, I know Mikey's a fan, but Caleb Houston's really looking like he's starting the ground. And, if you're Chuma, that's the guy who's maybe getting your minutes now. That's the guy you're going to have to get ahead of, because we have seen when Chuma can shoot. It's not consistent, but we've seen he has been able to do it in the past. But Houston's in there where he can do the 3 and D with very good shooting form. And I just think that for this season, at least, it's similar to what Mikey said. You cannot really mess with what's there on the court in terms of, I don't think Jonathan Isaac's going to get a starting spot unless something happens to somebody. Going from there, who knows? But it's going to be about how the minutes are allocated. It's okay, we've got our starters, but it's going to be how are our minutes allocated and who's closing the games out. Because I think we've got options where it doesn't always have to be the 5 who started or the 5 who close. If you get certain nights where, Markel's doing what he can do, where you're going to put him in to handle the rock at the end, aren't you? Without any shadow of a doubt. But if it's a night where we get Jalen Suggs, where he's hitting his shots and he's being a pest on defence, you're putting the Suggs in. But if you get the nights where we need scoring, especially if Banchero and Wagner have been, focused on, you're going to put Cole in. So we have these options that we haven't had in a long time because we're healthy. So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. But for this season, I would assume if everyone stays fit, Isaac's going to be a player off the bench for us. I think Houston's going to get minutes. And I think it's going to be people like Chuma, who RJ, etc., who are going to struggle to crack the rotation, especially if we're making a playoff or play-in run at the end.
How about you, Paul?
I have to agree. I think that starting 5 that we've seen last night plays really well together. I'm quite happy to see it adapted potentially on who the opposition is, as to whether Gary Harris comes in and Jalen drops back to the bench. But either way, I think all 4 guards are really blending well together. It's superb to see. And there's times we've seen all 3 of we're seeing Cole, Markel and Jalen, or Cole, Markel and Gary Harris out on the floor together. And there's a good understanding really developing. I'm not going to lie, I'm quite surprised to see everybody gelling quite so well and adapting to the different roles that they're being asked to play. Cole is quite open, he wants to be a starter, but he is blistering as a 6th man. He's really helping us. I know there's still an inconsistency at times with him, but he's doing a damn good job. And I hope that he can accept that he can be a huge player for the team. Because like you've just said, Gary, we have this starters thing. Everybody talks about starters. but coming off the bench is hugely important. And the finishers, you could be a finisher even if you're not a starter. And Cole in certain games is going to be that man. So yeah, I hope I'm really impressed. I would stick with the 5 that we had out last night, or let's say swap round Jalen and Gary Harris, depending upon the opposition that we're facing. So yeah.
I don't know what the up to date record is, but was it 11-3 or something like that? There was a status, or was Cole coming off the bench when he scores like 13 or more? The Magic are like 11-3. I don't know what the update was. I think that was a couple of weeks ago.
I've not seen it, but yeah, you're right. It was featured in one of the broadcasts the other day, wasn't it?
Can I just add one more point on JI as well, Paul?
Of course you can, mate.
We all want to see the shackles come off and see him get more minutes, because the impact that he's having in just 10 minutes a game is obvious to see. But do you know what? I'm happy if he just plays 15, 20 minutes a night up until the end of the season, because it's all about next year for me. So even if we don't see a huge ramp up in his minutes between now and the end of the season, I'm good with that. So yeah, it's just great to see him back.
It is. Now, Mikey, big question for you. Have we got to get our passports ready for April? You know,
I don't know.
You know, we keep hearing, and it's highlighted by Bally Sports Florida commentary team, that over the past month we've been one of the form teams in the NBA. We've got a big week in terms of making up ground with the teams that we've got coming in, or that we're going to play, that we're travelling out to play. So, what's your thoughts, mate? Are we making it, or are we falling just short?
Well, that reaction wasn't necessarily because we won't make it. It was, can we afford to make it ourselves? But no.
Well, Mrs. Bacon will tell you no, we can't.
Well,
Mr. Bacon will have a different opinion. Mr. Bacon will say Mrs. Bacon doesn't need to come if she doesn't want to. Please don't let her watch this now.
There's a real chance. I mean, shout out to Nabil, the Lando on Twitter. He posted yesterday before last night's game that he thinks the Magic will need to win a minimum of 38 games to make the play-in, which I think we'll probably agree with, there or thereabouts. And that would require the Magic going 16-11 the rest of the way. And after last night's win, we only need 15 more to be in and around that mix. But as I posted this morning, since that 9-game losing streak back in December, the Magic could go on 18-13. So if we're going off of current form and the way we're competing against some of these really good teams like the Nuggets and the Celtics that we've beat recently, there's absolutely no reason to think that we can't make it. The problem I think we might run into is we're also relying on one or two of Chicago, Toronto, Washington, or Indiana dropping a few games themselves and dropping back. And we lost. Well, obviously, G was there for the Bulls loss. I think that was a tough loss.
I think that one hurt.
Yeah, and the Wizards as well.
Yeah. The loss of the Knicks this week.
I agree, but I think those games against those teams are going to make the difference of who gets in and who doesn't, because it has a bigger impact on the standings, doesn't it? Than, do you know what I mean? It's like a 6-pointer in football almost. And those are a couple of games I don't think we could afford to have dropped. We've still got the Bulls and the Raptors on the road this week. We've got the Pacers at home this month. We've got the Wizards at home in March. And then we play them on the road again in April. So there's 5 games there that could make or break whether we get into the play-in or not. So for me, I think we have to win 3 or 4 of those games to be in the mix, as well as getting in around that 38-game win mark. So who knows? We'll see. Even if we don't make it, I think we can all agree it's been a big success of a season. We'll easily break last year's win total. We're playing meaningful games right up to the end of the season. The defensive side of the ball's beginning to pick up now as well. So look, even if we don't make the play-in tournament, we're still going to potentially have good odds in the draft lottery as well. So yeah, we're kind of in a good position whether we get in or not. So,
and let's not forget we've still got Chicago's dropping to us potentially, as long as it's not top 4.
Well, they lost last night, so if they can drop a few more, that'd be nice.
So the week ahead, Go on, G. Sorry.
I was going to say they're not a happy camp in Chicago at the moment. They're not happy they didn't make any trades. They're not playing very well. And I just wanted to add to your looking at the schedule ahead, the tough games that we do have. We've got Milwaukee twice. We're at Memphis one time. We've got a back-to-back at home against Cleveland. And we've got a road trip that includes a stop-off in Phoenix and then the Clippers and the Lakers on a 4-game trip, including San Antonio also. So there's about 7 difficult games there. So, yeah, but what Mikey just said, we need to be 37-38 and just hope results go our way.
Gee, just said there about the Bulls. Are you trying to say that they're not dancing and they're not having fun? Is that what you're saying?
They're not dancing. They're not having fun, mate.
That's good. Quite reminds one to know.
Gary, I love how you're able to work that in most weeks, mate.
I'm just that guy, Paul.
Like you've said many times, if that's your last tweet ever, if you are going to be banned from social media, that's going to be your last tweet ever. Getting that in there somehow.
I can't wait to be banned from social media. It's going to be. Can't wait. Shadow ban off Mr. Tesla. I can't wait.
Now, this week ahead, we have 3 games before the All-Star break, and at some point we'll be looking at picking up a date to record again. So on Saturday night, we close out the homestand with the visit of the Miami Heat. Then we travel for a back-to-back with Chicago and Toronto, which, as I say, takes us up to the All-Star break. I think, interestingly, on these 3 games that we have, we've got Miami in 6th, Chicago in 9th, Toronto in 10th. But each of those 3 teams are on a similar run of form to us over the last 10 games. So, each team is playing some reasonable basketball. As you say, G, Chicago aren't necessarily happy with the situation. Each of the teams have some injury issues. Miami have quite a few guys out, including Flopper Lowry. Lonzo Ball is out for the Bulls. OG Anunoby is also out for Toronto. I'm guessing that we may see Pirtle make his debut or be in his early stages of his Toronto career. So, guys, I'm going to ask you your thoughts on a potentially challenging but very interesting week ahead. Gary, what's your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, we'll go 3-0. Why not?
Nice.
Why not?
Nice.
Why not? We'll go 3-0. What is there to fear? They should fear us, really.
Hey, Miami come into the Amway. I don't think they're in for an easy game. And let's be honest, Wendell loves going back to Chicago. He loves playing there. But
we can hurt those teams. It's not like we're saying, oh, well, we've got to play like Milwaukee and then we've got to go and play Phoenix. We can beat those teams. So if we're not looking at that record in the Magic camp and saying we're going 3-0 this week, you've got to ask why.
So, Mikey, what's your thoughts?
I think we certainly need to win at least 2 of these 3 before the All-Star break. I mean, go back to the Miami game that we lost a few weeks back. Was that the game where where the 3-point shooting was horrendous, and we lost?
We were up 10 at a half.
Miami was the one where, where we faded in the 4th. Jimmy Butler used his experience to win it.
Yeah,
should we put it that way?
That's a nice way of putting it. Well, that
fell down very well.
I think that was one of the 5. So out of the 13 games that we've lost in this stretch since the 9-game losing streak, 5 of those games we've lost by 5 or fewer points, and that was one of them. Certainly one of those games we wish we had back, because you make a couple more threes and it's a very different game. Chicago and Toronto, I mean, like I've already alluded to, I think you have to win those 2 games. They're going to make a big difference in the standings for me, beating those teams in and around us. I'm going to go 2-1. I'm going to say we lose to Miami because they're just a bit of a bogey side for us, aren't they? We don't do very well against them, but let's say we beat Chicago on the road and Toronto.
Difficult back-to-back, though, that is. Difficult back-to-back.
No, just do it. Gary's gone 3-0.
Yeah.
Well, Jonathan Isaac's going to be missing one of those nights. I can't see him doing the back-to-back.
Take the shackles off a bowl.
No. Yeah.
The bowler coaster, as the guy to be saying.
I'll also go 2-1, but I think we'll beat Miami. I thought we tied with them in the last game. Just obviously, it came undone in the third, fourth quarter. They're missing a lot of people. Oladipo, Robinson, Jovic, as you've mentioned, Lowry. So they're a little bit thin. I know that their fans aren't happy either, because apparently rumor on Twitter was that what's his face? Pat Riley was sleeping all day yesterday and not making any trades. So no, I think we'll beat Miami. Problem is, the Chicago-Toronto game, the schedule makers haven't been kind to us because it's like a Monday, Tuesday back-to-back, isn't it? So I can see us beating Chicago and possibly losing to Toronto, something to that effect. Obviously, if JI doesn't play the second game, or if they may push him because he's got a week off after it. You never know, do you? But
I don't see how they're pushing him.
No.
Yeah, but like Gary said,
Just don't see it.
There's nothing to fear for any of those teams. They're in and around where we are. We're playing much better basketball. We can and should beat them. So we just fingers crossed that we do. But just to play it safe, I go 2-1.
Gee, was that the rumor that Pat Riley was asleep?
That's yeah.
It was like watch at window or something peering in. Like, how would you know that?
I have no idea.
Wasn't the rumor something about they had a trade lined up for Lowry to acquire somebody else, and some of the front office couldn't get hold of Pat Riley to approve the trade because he was having a nap or something like that. It was something like that, G, wasn't it?
It was.
I mean, who'd have thought that anything involving Kyle Lowry involves falling through?
It's for a bag of chips, Paul.
I can't stand that man. Really can't. I'm happy to see him stuck. Not him. Mate, I want to say 3-0. I really want to say 3-0. But I know full well if I make that sort of prediction, we aren't doing it. So I'm tempted to go 1-2 just because
you want to be wrong.
Different.
Yeah. So I'm going 1-2. I do think the Toronto game is a sticky game. I genuinely think that. I'm quite happy that I think we can go to Chicago and win. And you've said Miami, Mikey, a bit of a bogey team at times. I do think we can beat all three. But I don't like jinxing things for us. So I'm going 1-2. I don't believe it, though. Guys,
Paul, you're saying how much you like Kyle Lowry. I think you're just giving Nick Nurse a really easy ride.
Yeah, I don't like him either, let's be fair.
Hey, Paul, where's your poster? It's not in your room.
Which one? Oh, the Flopper Lowry. Mate, that could fill that gap at the side of me.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, do it.
That could fill that gap. I can't see this is making. I mean, look, I've managed. As you noticed, I'm in a different room to normal. We've our daughter's moved out, so this is her old room. So my magic stuff and various other bits have been moved into the guest room, as it's now being known. And I've got a space that I need to fill with something magic. And I was hoping that I could find something that I'd got knocking about. No, I've got nothing that can go there, unfortunately. So it might have to be that poster from the trip to the playoffs that I found the other day. Yeah. So yeah. But guys, this has been fantastic getting back to it. So to everybody out there, thank you for listening, watching. We do appreciate it. Please hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel, Orlando Magic UK. It really does help us. If you fancy some weekend shopping, click onto the NBA store, Europe or Fanatics from our links. Don't forget to use the affiliate code Magic UK 10 for 10% off your entire order. Certain exclusions may apply. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, all at Orlando Magic UK. And so, until next time, from Gary, Mikey, Geraint and myself, go Magic.